Okay, in three, two. All right, so a couple weeks ago, I was at Bash at the Brew 35, CCW. You had it at Unbranded Brewery in Hialeah, which I love. It's such a fun spot. Amazing food. My man Raul, Are You Hungry Grill, is now the chef there. Great beers, obviously. And while we're talking a lot of, WWE, AEW, Royal Rumbles coming up, we got great indie pro wrestling down here. All right, Coastal Championship Wrestling, CCW, which is so much fun to go to. I brought my son for the first time, brought my younger son with me a couple weeks ago, and joining us now is the man who is in charge, Nelio Cuomo Costa, who, Nelio, always good to have you on the program.
Well,
So I brought
always
my
good to see you.
son a couple of weeks ago, and he had a great time, but I had to tell him going in, I'm like, listen, this is not on TV. It's not WWE. It's not what you're used to. It's a little bit different. This is like where the wrestlers, they all start before they get to, the big television shows and all of that. And we had a great time. You treated us really great. How you doing this morning? You okay?
I feel great. You mentioned Unbranded Brewing. It's now the epicenter of professional wrestling in the Southeast United States. So you were in the building, you felt the energy there. So we have something special going on there. So I'm glad that your son loved it. It's about the kids. It's about getting kids excited and enjoying the show, and their fathers and their adults, and a 30-year-old and a 60-year-old. So I love to hear that, Zaslow.
It's fun because one of the things that you love if you go to a WWE show, if you're sitting in the first couple rows, like sometimes the wrestlers will interact with you, but it's such a tight little atmosphere at Unbranded that
Yes.
it's so easy for the wrestlers to interact with the fans. You feel like you're part of the show.
100%. It's about access. I think the way that we do it is how wrestling should be experienced. You really feel it in a completely different level. Like, oh, I love watching WrestleMania in this huge, 80,000 or 70,000 person arena. But I was on the floor at SoFi Stadium. My tickets were wonderful. And you don't feel that access, and you don't feel the intimacy. It's like being able to watch Metallica at a club when they're first coming up, or watching Metallica in SoFi Stadium, or an 100,000 person crowd. It's just a different vibe. But if you ask me, I prefer to be in that intimate vibe, being able to see that experience up close. So that's what we provide, and it's growing. We're standing room only almost every show now. Not just at Unbranded, but we run 8 shows a month throughout the state of Florida, and it's the way to watch wrestling now, I think, in Florida.
And you guys, you do season passes too, right?
Well, season passes last year, it was like my crazy experiment. I said, you know what? We have so many shows that we do monthly. So Bash at the Brews every first Saturday of the month, Conquer Kissimmee every second Friday. Now it's every third Thursday at Homestead Miami Brewing Company. I'm in Nashville on the third Saturday, and then Pompano Beach also on the third Saturday. We do a double shot, 2-state once a month. So I said, you know what? We're 12 shows a year. Let's give them a discount. Let's throw the December show in on top of the discounted tickets. And this year, the season passes were incredible, to the point where I was shocked. We were offering a custom shirt, and I spoke to my shirt guy, and originally I thought, you know what, I'm going to have 35 shirts for him. But we blew that out of the water, and it's really cool that we have the tickets sold, for the next year on our hardcore fans. And you can count on them being there, So it's just, it was shocking,
I'll
But
tell you what's really
we're consistent. We're there every month. We're having our 20-year anniversary on April 19th. 20 years of Coastal Championship Wrestling of CCW. Our second champion ever was MVP. Dustin Rhodes, all were part of the CCW 20 years ago. And now 20 years. So it's about consistency. So a season pass works.
Well, yeah. And, Championship Wrestling of Florida has a major history. It's funny because it was early this year. I hosted an episode of Busted Open on SiriusXM Fight Nation.
Awesome.
I hosted with Tommy Dreamer. And, Tommy asked, what's some of the indie wrestling? What's some of the local wrestling by where you are? And I told him, well, sometimes I'll go to CCW. And he went and he put on his Championship Wrestling of Florida shirt for the rest of the show. So there's a major history down here. How long have you been running CCW now, and how much harder is it than you thought it was going to be?
That's a great question. So about 4 years ago, I knew I was going to, own and promote my own wrestling company when I was 4 years old. The first time I stepped into the doors at CCW was 2008. But about 5 years ago, I had the plan to rebirth basically the Championship Wrestling Florida system and create what I call the last territory. So started at like 3 shows a month, which is not a territory, and it's grown to a lot of that. So for the last about 4.5 years, being kind of the leading force there has been difficult. Has it been more difficult than I thought? It's a great question. Every moment, every show, we did 73 shows this year. That includes private shows, corporate shows. Actually, we have show 70, 71 and 2 are this weekend. 72 and 3 were this weekend. So we're done until January 6th. But has it been easy? No. The hardest part is interpersonal relationships.
That's the part that I would assume is hard. Like you're booking the shows, and when one of your guys gets mad, like what do you do?
Jim Ross calls it all the time. He says the 2 C's, cash and creative. So you have to kind of sit down and you have to look at someone and say, there's what does this person want? What is their goal? But then what is the company goal? And you can do all that you possibly can to try to placate or try to help someone, reach their goals. But at the end of the day, those 3 letters, CCW, have to mean more than anything, have to mean more than myself as the owner and the booker or the writer or whatever you want to say. Even myself, if the 3 letters CCW does not come first, then you have a problem. And I think you see that, and we see that happening on a national level with, I'm not going to name company names exactly, but there's a lot of companies that are having a lot of problems differentiating the fact of what's good for the 3 letters and what's good for the talent. And you have to kind of figure that out. So, when I stepped in, I was a talent. And I was one of the boys, and it was that process of making them understand that, it's a whole different ballgame. And there were guys that were good friends of mine who had to leave. There were new people who came in that had to leave. But at the end of the day, you're the circus ringleader. You're also the lion tamer in this type of position. You have to make sure at the end of the day that, what the fans need and what the company needs is as important as what your talent needs.
So, Nelia, I want you to tell me, I saw the ad. You said a huge announcement for CCW is coming. You guys are putting on a show with the National Wrestling Alliance, of course, which, is the most storied promotion in professional wrestling in the United States. And Billy Corgan, of course, runs the NWA. I had him on my show a few months ago when NWA, right before NWA 75. So you're doing a show with Billy Corgan and the NWA coming up. That's a really big deal. Tell me how that came together.
Zaslow, I'm from Chicago. He's from Glen Ellen. It's just a couple of guys from Chicago running a great show down here in Fort Lauderdale. No, it's big, and I feel like it's very important. And Revolution Live, January 13th, downtown Fort Lauderdale. It's an awesome rock venue. It's an awesome vibe, and who better than to work together with on this show than one of the greatest rock writers and singers and performers in the history of everything, especially coming from a Chicago guy like myself. As a child, there was a venue called the Thirsty Whale in River Grove, Illinois, small town right outside of Chicago. And River Grove's claim to fame was at the age of I don't know how old he was, but that was one of Billy Corgan's first performances. He went to Triton College, the community college in River Grove, Illinois. So growing up as a huge Smashing Pumpkin fan, and also he was one of our guys. now being able to speak to him, and have Zoom calls with him and picking his brain, a few times at least, is surreal because we're talking about professional wrestling. You know what I mean? Now we're in my wheelhouse too. So it's something that, we hope to move forward and bond together more about it. But right now I'm focused on a couple things. And that is, I'm a very competitive guy. They were running 2 shows that night. There's a taping for the CW, which is really exciting for the NWA. And of course, CCW is going to have a presence on that show as well. But there's also the CCW and NWA collaboration on the same night that we're working together. And it is my absolute goal. And I know they have a stacked show, is to make sure that our collaboration show is going to knock the socks off of that NWA show. And that's in a I know everyone's going to love both of the shows, but it's me now putting something together to really impress and show the NWA and show South Florida that we are what's next and we are what's up.
I'm always interested in how this stuff works. Like when I spoke to Billy Corgan, I think it was, we talked about one of the shows that NWA, that some of his guys worked with BRCW. And it was
Correct.
Interesting how he told me, he's like, listen, you got to understand as a promoter that that's their show. All right. But like you're saying here, you're saying it's a collaboration between NWA and CCW. So how does that go? I don't, you don't spill state secrets here. I don't like knowing how everything works, but is it a delicate situation when it comes to booking that show?
So I, Matthew Matchler and Neil Glazer, my partners in BRCW, we work in that company together, and we produced the show. I produced the show with Neil, and then Matthew's the chairman there, and working with Billy Corgan for that show, which was around June or July of this year, showed me that it was a much simpler process. When 2 companies come together, it's the same thing that I just said, with the wrestler. Like there, sometimes the decision making is at odds because we're not, we both have different priorities. We have both things that we want to accomplish. And it also comes down to cash and creative, right? So it was shockingly, I'm not going to say easy, but it was shockingly open and organized, and the communication was great in regards to Billy Corgan, Joe Galley, Kyle Davis, the office at the NWA, and myself, because I think we both are trying to accomplish a lot of the same things. CCW wants to put together real, traditional, hard-hitting professional wrestling, and that's where the NWA wants to go. So when it comes down to the wrestlers, like a lot of the wrestlers at the NWA were a major part of CCW before they were signed to the NWA. And there was a great reply was I asked about a certain group of guys, and I asked about a certain video that I had put up, and I was wondering their thoughts, in putting the show together. And one of the answers was, Billy Corgan sees everything. He saw it already. So, that's somebody who is doing his homework. He's a huge megastar, and he is busy, and he's putting his tours together, and he's putting a tour and running. He's running the day-to-day of the National Wrestling Alliance, but he also has time to go through CCW Wrestling Alive and see the guys that he likes and the guys that he thinks works on this show. And he was dead on for that stuff. So that was really cool. And also just putting the show together, like we did our Paranoia is the NWA show. That is 7:00 start time in Revolution. We're at 9:30 for the collaboration show. I wanted to go with something a little grittier and a little bit more of like the night show, the after show. And when we kind of put everything together, it was clear, when it came to the artwork of the show, when it came to the name of the show, it literally was a lot quicker than I thought it was. And when we put our heads together, we both had a lot of the same thoughts coming in. So that's a really positive beginning, but that being said, The show hasn't happened yet, right? So it's going to be a lot of moving parts. You know, I joke about professional wrestling. It's herding cats. It's getting, you know, as getting about 15 to 16 cats in a room and trying to section them off and let them know that they have this amount of time and this is what they're doing. And I mean literal cats. I'm not saying that because I mean like literal cats. So now we have two companies doing so and working together. So it's going to be interesting, but most importantly, it's going to be entertaining and it's going to be fun for the fans.
Yeah, really cool. And of course, right now, I mean, our listeners, if you're into it, if you follow NWA, EC3, NWA champion right now, I mean, it's the most storied, you know, probably most storied championship in the history of pro wrestling. Really great job here, Nelio. Tell everybody how you said January 13 Revolution. Tell everybody how they can get tickets for the show with NWA and CCW and anything you guys, of course, have coming up. Go ahead.
Okay, so this is going to take about 25 minutes. I'm just kidding because we have so much stuff coming up. January 6th, Bash at the Brew. You have WWE, former WWE NXT wrestler Top Dollar, AJ Francis. He returns to CCW. It's funny. He came to CCW. He bloodied Cha-Cha Charlie, and then he got signed to the re-signed to WWE, and a lot of people felt that he did that to escape the wrath of Cha-Cha Charlie. January 6th, that wrath is coming. You have Top Dollar, AJ Francis, we can't call him Top Dollar, versus Cha-Cha Charlie. January 6th, Bash of the Brew. You have QT Marshall, who just had a huge exit and a very public exit at All Elite Wrestling. He is with us. Do I think he will be working in a major company by April or May and on television on a regular basis? I have a feeling he will. But until then, you can expect to see QT Marshall, obviously January 6th. You'll see him January 13th. You'll see him at least for the first couple of months on a regular basis here at CCW in an office capacity and also in a wrestling capacity. So if you go to ccwrestlingfl.com, you can go and see all of our local shows. But most importantly, why we're here is I implore you, it's at nwaliveevents.com. You can also go to ccwrestlingfl.com. CCW and NWA present Viva Revolution. That's at Revolution Live in Fort Lauderdale, January 13th. It's going to be a happening. It's going to be incredible. And here's the thing. That venue is awesome. I don't know if you've been to that venue. It's an awesome rock venue. But the way that we're setting it up, visually speaking, it's going to sell out. NWA will sell out. This show will sell out. Our show will sell out. So you need to go to ccwrestlingfl.com or nwaliveevents.com. Buy tickets for those shows as soon as you hear the sound of my voice, because that is going to sell out very quickly. And we just have an incredible show. We have Kerry Morton versus Jackal Stevens. This is an exclusive because this hasn't been announced yet.
Go on.
For the CCW Heavyweight Championship at that show. So Kerry Morton's coming. Kerry Morton had an incredible match with Ariel Levy for the CCW Heavyweight Championship. He did not lose, it was no definitive ending, and Ariel lost that belt. So Kerry Morton has been in line for the CCW Heavyweight Championship match for 6 months now. He finally has it. So you have Kerry Morton for the gold at CCW NWA Viva Revolution. You have Gangrel facing the 7-foot monster Jack Talos as well. That one you can't miss. QT Marshall will be in action. And here's another one. We call originally we threw around to call the show NWA versus CCW. We decided to call it NWA and CCW because we didn't want to have any. We didn't want the fans to think that we're fighting, but we're going to be fighting in that ring. It's going to be a huge 8-man tag match. CCW versus NWA. Martin Stone and Ariel Levy, team captains of Team CCW. And you have the NWA, who has not informed us of who their competitors will be. But that's going to be a huge match. That will be a certain stipulation that I can't talk about yet. But I'm really, really excited about that. So you will have a huge CCW versus NWA tag match. And obviously, you know who I'm pulling for in that one. And I think that's going to be a little bit intriguing.
That's going to be awesome.
It's going to be great. And I feel like I want to say this. If you come to a CCW show, you're going to watch a tight show. You're going to watch a show that's hard hitting. You're also going to watch a show that, you know, a casual person, if you're listening to this, you love professional wrestling, but if you have a family member, if you have a kid, if you have a teenager who's not huge into professional wrestling, bring them to this show, bring them to CCW, because I think you'll get a convert there. So expect insanity. ccwrestlingfl.com for all of our events in Pompano Beach, in Kissimmee, in Homestead, and obviously at Bash at the Brew, and then obviously NWA, CCW, Viva Revolution, January 13th.
Awesome. Great job, Nelio. Appreciate you, man. We'll see you
I
soon.
appreciate
all right?
you, brother. Hell yeah, man.